Hello everyone, Larseth here, just doing a quick video. Well, it probably won't be that quick, depending on how, how much I decide to ramble on some of the Steam games. Because obviously it's the Steam winter sale. I say obviously, if you use Steam, you'll know it is. So I thought I'd go through some of the stuff in my library, which for me are like must-buys in various categories. Like games that I really enjoy. They're in no particular order, because, you play some games when you're in certain moods. You can't really rank them against one another. It's a bit difficult. This sale ends, obviously, the 2nd of January. I imagine, like most people, when they see the sale coming up, they have certain games which they want to buy, like they know they're going to buy, and then they spend the rest of the sale going, what games sound good? I don't know. Which is basically the reason for me doing this video. The list is not exhaustive. It's just a few games here and there. So the first game I'm going to go and look at, excuse me, is Don't Starve, which is, the first few games are actually all survival games. So Don't Starve, there are two varieties, Don't Starve and Don't Starve Together. They are both sort of Lovecraftian survival games where you play as a variety of characters. And well, yeah, basically you have to survive. So the game cycles, it has like day and night phases, and at night you have to be near like light, otherwise these monsters that you can't see because it's pitch black come and kill you. And it is actually a pretty difficult game. More so, I think, if you're playing multiplayer. It's a lot more enjoyable if you're playing multiplayer. I've only got 12.7 hours on Don't Starve. I don't have any friends that play this, which makes it a little bit difficult to do multiplayer. But yeah, I definitely recommend it. For the base game, it's $2.74. Obviously, this is in pounds. And for all of the expansions, which essentially are different games, especially the last one, Don't Starve Shipwrecked, they're more or less standalone games. It's £6.20. Don't Starve Together, I'm not sure whether it will have it linked in here. Yeah, so Don't Starve Together is all of the expansions, but it's multiplayer. This is very important. If you want to play multiplayer, you have to get Don't Starve Together. I believe you have to buy them separately for multiplayer and single player. The reason being is because the multiplayer was developed much later than the single player, which is why it's sort of a standalone game. But yeah, definitely recommend that. Next one, Subnautica. Basically, another survival game, but underwater. So this is sort of set in, I guess, another planet, because all of the life is basically like nothing on this planet, put it this way. Or I guess it is somewhat like it, but not quite. So it's also set quite far in the future. I think the good thing about this is because it's underwater, it breaks away from a lot of the traditional sort of ways that survival games work, because you have to power your underwater base. So you're dealing with stuff like water filtration, you're dealing with stuff like air, you're dealing with stuff like building underwater craft, of which there are multiple different types. It's pretty good, and it's really good if you like exploration as well. So that's that. And at the moment, I mean, it's still in early access, and they do update it quite a lot, is £7.49. One after this is one which I featured on this channel before, which is The Long Dark. Another game, which I believe is in early access still, but again, the devs are really good for this one. They update it constantly. And this one is basically set sort of in the Canadian wilderness, and I say survival game because you don't survive. It's basically how long can you last before you die, because essentially the point of this game is that you will eventually die, whether it's a day in or whether it's a few hundred days in. It's very difficult it's quite a high learning curve, I would say, even on the normal difficulty. The higher difficulties, of which I don't play, are absolutely torturous. But very good game, and for the price, again, I definitely recommend it. Last one in this category, which I don't think I actually put in the survival category because it's a little bit of a weird one. Have I got it in city building? I do. It's Banished. So Banished, basically, you set up... I guess I call it survival because you're sort of... Think of it as sort of an overlord of what is essentially a few settlers, and you have to get them to gather resources, build buildings, and do all these various things. But you have to actually survive. So, like, during... You can see in this picture, it's winter here. You have to make sure they've got enough fire... enough wood for their fire, rather. You could do trading, and there's also a load of really good mods for this. The base game is a little bit thin on the ground. Sort of after I've played about like 23 hours. It is a little bit thin on the ground, but it is very, there's a mod which is brilliant, and again, it's pretty cheap, £5.09. So that's that. Next one we'll go on to. Let's just minimize all these. Is the simulation games. First of which are sort of two of the same, almost. Game Dev Tycoon and Mad Games Tycoon. As the names probably suggest, they are related to developing games. Game Dev Tycoon came out first. As you can see, I purchased it quite a few years ago, and I've played quite a bit more on it. I only purchased Mad Games Tycoon in this sale, actually. Game Dev Tycoon is basically, I see it as a simpler version of Mad Games Tycoon. Mad Games Tycoon, from what I can tell, sort of looked at Game Dev Tycoon or maybe other games that are similar and thought we need a bit more depth in this, which it really does provide. So Game Dev Tycoon is brilliant. Like, it is a very good game, highly polished. Can't think of one fault other than it's not very in-depth, I would say. If you want the in-depth, Mad Games Tycoon. And this one, again, it's only £6.59. So, you'll notice a trend. It doesn't have to be expensive to be a really enjoyable game. So there's that one, Mad Games Tycoon. And another one, which, to be honest, for me, is probably top of this list, I think, is Stardew Valley. I only got it in like simulation category just because it's sort of a farm sim, even though it could go into like casual or whatever. Although the hours some people play on it, it's anything but casual. This game, essentially, if you've ever played Harvest Moon, this is basically Harvest Moon sort of for the modern era. I don't know if that's the right way of putting it. For me, I hate the more recent Harvest Moons because I hated all of that stupid using the touchpad on the DLC to stroke animals and stuff like that. It's just so annoying to me. I've played them and I did not like them. Everything else about the game, fine. Just that bit ruined it for me. Having to do that every morning for like a dozen animals was enough to push you over the edge. Stardew Valley, fortunately, doesn't have any of that. And it took everything that was great about Harvest Moon and made it better and added even more great stuff. So I would definitely recommend this one. And also the dev's pretty awesome as well. Like, he was made by one guy, who goes by the alias Concerned Ape. And he basically took down loads of people's suggestions, like including for like a multiplayer, and has just ran with it and has made a load of really great updates. Version 1.1, which was, I believe, the biggest update, came out a few weeks ago, or maybe it was a month ago. And has so far, been met with quite high praise. So I definitely recommend that. And again, £7.36. So, next one. I've got to go through these a bit faster, otherwise I'm going to be here forever. Is probably... Where is it? When have I got it in? It's not really a role-playing game, but I've got it in this category anyway. Would be Saints Row the Third and Saints Row 4. These games, I will warn you, they are like 18 rated games. So if you're not 18, don't go buying these. They are absolutely brilliant. You could get the third Saints Row the Third. You get the full package for $2.74. To be honest, you don't really need the full package. You could just get the base game because most of this is cosmetic stuff, as far as I'm aware. And then Saints Row Where is it? There we go. Saints Row 4. I believe is not that much more expensive either. Yeah, $274. And there's also a few DLCs and standalones for Saints Row 4. They're basically like, they took what essentially was GTA, went way overboard with it, and just started taking the mick, really. So it's hilarious. It's got a load of humor. It's really immature. Saints Row 4 in particular deals with like superpowers. It is just like, if it's like GTA gone nuts. It is pretty damn good. So I definitely recommend both of those, and they're also pretty darn cheap. Building games, city building games. I've got Tropico written down, but really I'd go for Tropico 4. Tropico 4, I've bought Tropico 5. I bought it in the summer sale, but I haven't played it yet. By all accounts and reviews I've read, Tropico 5 is they took away a lot of customization, which I'm not sure why they did. Especially with regards to your character, they've really trimmed it down. But I'm not sure why. Tropico 4, I think, is brilliant. The campaign is actually pretty darn long, and that's not even taking into account the DLC campaigns, which in themselves are quite long. So I would go for both of these, or either or. They're both quite cheap. I believe Tropico 4, the full version, £6.24. Can't beat it. So basically, if you don't know what Tropico is, it's a game where you play as a dictator, El Presidente, on your little island, presumably in the Caribbean, and you have to basically, build a city, and sort of manage your populace and your industries and stuff like that. And it's very sort of light-hearted. It's not sort of really... Well, I guess it's deceptively detailed. It's got a fair bit of detail in it with regards to sort of production chains, but it's all wrapped up in this very sort of entertaining and light-hearted way, which I really enjoy. Especially on Tropico 4, you have like a commentator, which is sort of a radio broadcaster who's really entertaining. Unfortunately, I don't think he is actually in Tropico 5. I think that was another thing they axed for some reason. It wasn't on my list originally, but I'll add a shout out for City Skylines. It is a pretty fun game. It's basically what SimCity, the most recent SimCity, should have been. And actually, this is a lot better in pretty much all regards to any SimCity I've played. So this is very good. This is a Paradox game, so made by the same people that make... I'm pretty sure it's Paradox. I'm not just talking rubbish, am I? I'm pretty sure it's Paradox. I don't want to go saying that and it not be Paradox. Let's look on the store page. There we go. Paradox Interactive published it. Yeah, no, it's very good. And it's got a few expansions. I'm not so sure the expansions are necessary. As in fact, for some of them, like there's just been one come out, but there's one about Snowfall. After Dark is quite a good one. Snowfall, not so much. They just add different maps, and it gets a bit repetitive from what I've read. So that's that. Let's go on quickly. And casual game, I have one which I bought again only a few weeks ago. One Finger Death Punch. So this only requires basically 2 mouse buttons, your left and your right mouse button to play, and it's basically you have to click. You sort of fight. You fight opponents, stick figures coming up to you on either side. And depending on what side they're on and distance, you have to use different mouse buttons. And it sounds really simple, and it is, and it's pretty fun. Like, it's nothing more gratifying than, like, jumping from one side to the other, just beating the hell out of these stick figures. And there's also a few weapons and stuff like that. It's just a really entertaining, lighthearted. I say lighthearted in the sense that you don't need to put a huge amount of thought process into it. It's sort of quite relaxing, sit back of a game. So the last category, where are we looking? Storytelling. So Telltale games, you can see I've got a few of them here. the main one I would recommend, and I think is by far the best, is The Wolf Among Us, which is based on the graphic novels called Fables, which is by Bill Whittingham, I think. I think that's his name. Themselves are really good. So it's based around fairy tale characters who live in, I think it's New York, if I remember correctly. And you're probably familiar with Telltale games, so it's essentially I won't play that because it said it has spoilers, but it essentially has, you play the role of Bigby Wolf, who's sort of a detective. He's the main character in the graphic novels, and you have to solve a crime, essentially. And the art style is brilliant. I think the Telltale games art style I enjoy. I think they did it really well in The Wolf Among Us. And I wish they would make a sequel. I believe they're meant to. I mean, you can see it's got overwhelmingly positive reviews. And it's also only £5. So you can't really argue with that. So the next one from Telltale, which I quite like, which I think, again, is better than The Walking Dead, and especially the Game of Thrones one, which I haven't finished because I thought was a bit lacking. And I'm a pretty big Game of Thrones fan, is Tales from Borderlands. This one... I have played Borderlands 1 and 2, although I haven't completed 2, and I still really enjoyed the story. I mean, I knew most of the story, but obviously having not completed 2, I don't know all of it, but it was still, really enjoyable. It's got some good humour in there, because Claptrap makes a few appearances, and Scooter, as you can see in the background. I thought it was really good, and the story ties in, like, it's different enough from anything that's in Borderlands 1 and 2, so you're not going, oh yeah, I already know all this, but it's also similar enough that you can sort of relate to some of the characters that you see and stuff like that. So I definitely recommend that. And the last game, which I'm going to say, although, like I said, I could go on forever, is Firewatch. This game is amazing. I bought it in summer sale, I think. Yeah, it was summer sale. And basically, I never got around to playing it. I just didn't have the time. And I got around to playing it yesterday, as you can see. Or yesterday is when I'm doing this video. And, oh my god, it is absolutely brilliant. I saw one of the reviews on Steam, which was, you don't play Firewatch, you feel it. And I think that perfectly sums up this game. It is essentially, I mean, some might call it a walking simulator. So you are, your character has essentially just got a job as a ranger, or somebody who's out in the Wyoming wilderness, who's got a job as a fire watcher. So they sit up in towers and watch for fires, because that region of America is very prone to wildfires, because that's how a lot of the forest regenerates naturally. So they have people out there stationed to watch for said fires. So you play as this character who's out there, and essentially, because it's you're only one person in the tower, all of your contact in this game is based on a walkie-talkie or radio with one of the people in one of the other towers. And I won't say more than that because it'll spoil it. But honestly, the game is brilliant. It is. I mean, you might look at it, and because I think it's not. I mean, it's £9, and you might think £9 for 3 hours of gameplay with basically no replay value. I mean, it's pretty much you play it once, and maybe you put it down for a year and then play it again. I would say it's definitely worth it. Like, you'd pay that much to go into a movie. This, to me, was like a movie. I thought it was, brilliant. So, yeah, get that if you're in story games, and also if you like wilderness-related stuff, because it's, the scenery in it is really lovely. But what I'll do now, I think, is just show off the Humble Store. So yeah, if you want to, if you can't find a game on Steam, which is unlikely, or you just want to buy your games from somewhere else, there's always the option to go onto the Humble Store, which is if you don't know what it is a store whereby you pay for games. they either do like humble bundles, they also do books and stuff like that. Have a look. These change constantly. But you, at least for the bundles, nominate to pay certain amounts, and you get certain, games depending on how much you spend and stuff like that. And essentially, a percentage of the money goes to charity. And I believe, yeah. So currently, any purchases I make support Games Aid, and you could change, who you want it to go to. And it's really good. And you can also change how much you want to go to the developers and then how much to charity and stuff like that. So I mean, and all the code you get, you redeem on Steam. I don't know how it works with refunds. I don't think you can refund these games because technically you didn't buy it on Steam. So any refunds would have to be done through here. I can't comment on that because I've never done it before. But if you want to give it to charity and there's games you want to buy and they're on sale here for the same price as they are on Steam, like, go ahead. Because 5% goes to charity. If you don't have enough money to give to charity yourself, necessarily on a regular basis, but you like spending money on games, no matter how little, you can always contribute this way. So I think that's probably it for me for this video, because I've rambled on long enough. But I hope you might find at least one of those games good or useful. And if you decide to go for any of them, I'd love to hear about it. So just pop a comment below or something like that. But yeah, thank you very much for watching if you've made it this far. And I will speak to you in whatever video is out next. I suspect probably Europa Universalis 4. Anywho, take care.